For more, we are joined now by ANC First Deputy Secretary General and the party's International Relations Subcommittee Chair, Nomvula Mokonyane, who is joining us on this. TSG, good evening and thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening to you, Vuyo, and good evening to your viewers, and thanks for inviting us.
Let's start to the point that I was making right now with the ATM leader, Vuyo Zungula, on the issue of I guess the relationship that we're seeing between ANC and EFF speaking in one voice, which is a rare occurrence. And many are saying, well, this could just simply be politicking ahead of 2024 elections. Your take on that?
I think it will be people who do not understand the history of our own struggle. It will be people who also do not understand that we are where we are because of the global anti-apartheid movement. And that when a situation like what is now happening in Palestine, in occupied Palestine, is taking place, we have to actually, all of us, rally behind a stance that calls for action, international solidarity, as well as a single message. I think it will be very naive and very opportunistic for anyone to believe that this is just an artificial or just a coming together out of a particular moment. The ANC has been consistent. It has also been pronounced through our various policy positions as well as through our leaders, and it has been a continued program that we have also affirmed as that the struggles of the people of Palestine is intertwined to our own struggle, and our freedom is not complete until Palestine is free. So it is not. What has happened is that there is also an awakening of other people who never bothered and who are also trying to divert us out of paying attention to this atrocity.
Are you not, and before we go into the nitty-gritties of your support to this motion, are you not bothered as the ANC about the impression of being in bed with the EFF, or rather, maybe to put it straight, to following the EFF's lead in this instance?
In actual fact, there is no one who's following anyone. You will remember that in our own conference of the African National Congress, we have taken resolutions around this matter, and not only Palestine, Cuba, Venezuela, as well as with regard to Palestine. So when one party motivates for a discussion and an adoption of a resolution, we can't actually be seen to be just opposing for the mere sake of opposing. This is but what we came out raising immediately after that horrendous incident of the 7th of October, and as well as looking at the terror that has been put on the people of Palestine by the Netanyahu government, the apartheid Israeli government. So we not, and I think we refuse to be dragged into petty and low politics. The world all over is looking at this matter. And if there is something that can bring all of us together, is about speaking in unison with one voice in defense of humanity. So and it doesn't matter who has initiated. What is of importance is that we are all rallying behind a common cause.
Well, the other issue then would be, Nomvula, the issue of then why are we not specifically driving the issue of ceasefire, the issue of ending the conflict instead of taking sides? You mentioned that this is something that, as the ANC, even in the times of Nelson Mandela, we've been very strong about, as a country that has gone through apartheid. But the message doesn't come out clearly as that of, let's rather stop the conflict instead.
No, Vuyo, I think you yourself, you need to go back and check the history of the South African community and the African National Congress on this matter. Even now lately, when the president and the NEC, when we gathered for our last NEC meeting, we made a call. The first issue was to say it must be immediate ceasefire. Secondly, that there must be a release of hostages, particularly children. Thirdly, that there must be opening of humanitarian corridor for the relief of the all the goods and services that have to reach the people of Palestine. That there has to be genuine negotiations for permanent peace towards a two-state solution, and that there must be an investigation on the war crimes against the Israeli government. This is what we are calling. And as their act of terror escalates, of course, you have to also look at intensifying and look at other measures that will actually push them to an extent of appreciating that we cannot, as it has never also been done when ourselves were calling for international solidarity and the isolation of the apartheid South African government, that we can't, as South Africans, also be not active and take decisions that we have never taken. We are now looking at, we have called our own diplomats from Tel Aviv. We have supported the call by the president, actually not even a call, a decision that there must be an investigation on the war crimes. Thirdly, we are also supporting a call that this must be characterized as an act of genocide. So it is not picking one against the other. There is so much that we are doing. We are also looking at how we deal with the reform of our multilateral platforms. Because again, the ICC and the United Nations Security Council have to also play a role, but we also have to use other platforms such as our own platforms of BRICS, the liberation movements that we have, as well as the global anti-apartheid movement, that we all have to stand together and demand extraordinary actions. And these are the extraordinary means, including the closure of the embassy here in South Africa, until sense prevails that there be immediate ceasefire, the opening of the corridor, and of importance, the commitment towards genuine negotiations. Maybe Vuyo, you also do not understand and appreciate. We have had various processes that were facilitated through leaders of the ANC, where even the leadership of the apartheid Israel was brought out of their country to here, where there's been facilitation by our own envoys, Comrade Zola Square, Comrade Pahad, may his soul rest in peace, and many other leaders that have done this particular work. We are mobilizing South African women in dialogue that are also engaging on these matters. Our intention is to find genuine, everlasting peace, but also be consistent. See the ICC being consistent, the multilateral institutions. Here, there are authorities in Palestine, Israel, that have actually called for the elimination of the people in Palestine through bombing. There's been bombing of hospitals and so forth. That is an act of genocide. And therefore, the ICC has to deal with these issues because we believe that they've got a case to answer.
Just on a lighter note, you're speaking to Kwena, not Vuyo. So, yeah.
Oh, Vuyo and Kwena, yes. Okay.
Just on a lighter note, no problem. But then, are you then, as the party in government, Mokonyane, not worried about, as many have said, the relationship that we currently have with Israel and how this call will affect it going forward? Obviously, pending whatever outcome we get out of this.
You know, out of a situation like this, of course, there will be casualties. And there may be setbacks, but there may be opportunities. Some of the issues that we know around economic sanctions and boycotts, they had to do with the fact that some of the products were coming from the occupied territories in Gaza and so forth. And the fact of the matter is that there's no production now. Even fields have been bombed, farms have been bombed, production sites have been bombed. We need to also be saying, in the same vein as we have called for economic sanctions in South Africa, there has to be some extent of sacrifice. And we are not alone in this call. And thirdly, we need to appreciate that up until there is ceasefire, a commitment towards genuine negotiations, then we can be able to reconsider the positions that we are taking. However, the one that we can't actually reverse is this one of the prosecution of the apartheid Israeli regime. I think that has to happen. At no point, even here in South Africa, did we see yes, they bombed our homes. Yes, they killed innocent children in Soweto. But a call to say go and attack, go and destroy people who are in a hospital, who are in a refugee camp, it is the worst of what we have ever seen. And therefore, that's why you have to take extraordinary means.
Yeah.
And South Africans must also appreciate the people of Palestine pledged solidarity with us as they were also living under the siege and under the atrocities of Israeli government. They stood with us. And we also have to do that because, again, the anti-apartheid movement was not an anti-apartheid movement that was supported by those that are more advantaged. Even the people of Western Sahara stood with us, living in the camps and in the transit places. The people of Palestine, some of us went into those places at a time when they themselves were defending themselves with stones, and we were also doing it here with stones and leads. And therefore, when Madiba said, our freedom will not be complete without the freedom of Palestine, it's because of the appreciation of the solidarity and the risks that they took to free this country.
All right, Nomvula Mokonyane, we're unfortunately out of time, but thank you so much for making time to speak to us tonight. I appreciate your time and your insight. ANC TSG Nomvula Mokonyane, that's also giving us the standpoint from ANC as far as their support for the motion earlier on today, or earlier in the day, that was raised by the EFF in Parliament.